your job will pay like over 160, and your businesses, what would you say, like over 150, 160 still, something like that? Let's say
my businesses are actually doing very well. I don't want to give the big number, but I'm able to at least take home an additional 150, 160, what have you.
So that's over 300,000, and that's like you're already in the 1%, not 1%, but at least the small percentage of Americans here. So and you're saying it doesn't really matter. Yes, you want to make a ton of it, but it doesn't really matter. So what would you define as success to you?
Perfect question.
All right, guys, family, how you guys doing? Welcome to the House of Entrepreneurs. Today, I'm really excited to host someone who is becoming a friend of mine, a true friend of mine. We met in one of the we are actually attending one of the mentorship programs, and I think he's also doing another 6-figure mentorship program, and he's really interested in growing himself, and he's an entrepreneur. He's a husband. He's a lover of Jesus Christ. He's a serial. I could say he's a serial entrepreneur, and I'm really excited about what the wisdom that he's going to be dropping to us today, and how we can manage our jobs and at the same time having a business, either side gig or a business. So I would really want to encourage you guys to subscribe and let's get into it. So Steve, welcome to the House of Entrepreneurs.
Marvin, thanks, man. Happy to be here. Happy to be a participant on the House of Entrepreneurs. I think what you're doing is fantastic. And so I'm just glad to be here and glad to be a part.
Yeah. So first off, why Steve Motivate? I see that's like your brand name, Steve Motivate. Why that name?
Yeah. So my birth name is Stephen Mitchell, but about, gosh, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago now, I was trying to come up with a name that I thought would be fitting for what I wanted to do, which was motivate people with words, help them with their mindset and with their money maneuvers. I didn't know, I wasn't always that clear as to what I wanted to do, but Stephen Motivate is one, it fits my initials, S&M, Stephen Mitchell, Stephen Motivate. And then I feel like not only is it a description, but it's also like a command, like Stephen Motivate. And so it reminds me to continue on and to see what I'm trying to do, not as optional, right? It's more of a duty and I feel like almost, like you said, I love Jesus and I believe in God and all of that. And I feel like it's me reminding myself of what, more than the money, more than anything else, God wants you to do that. So Stephen Motivate.
It's basically to motivate people to like bring out the best, out of themselves, like what God has created them to do, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we all get, it's easy to get complacent. It's easy to, for outside, everything we deal with on a normal basis, from the news to, certain friends, certain people, certain work environments, they tend to kind of tear us down a bit, even subconsciously without us knowing it. So, I think I want to be very intentional about building people up and helping them tap in to what's inside of them, especially as it relates to their mind, but really push them also to get to a bag, to get money as well, which is something it's kind of newer on my journey, but I really want to share information for people to help them also get monetary gain, so they can take that gain and make an impact in their world.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. So I'm a firm believer of nature nurture. Would you please, like tell us where this whole journey started, the entrepreneur space? I know, of course, we'll be talking about, I know you have a daytime job, but also you have like you have many businesses that you're running on the side. Actually, I want to let the audience know that Steve helped me open my company. So I believe that we are going to, in the future, we'll be doing some, business. Like I was saying, I'm a believer of nature and nurture, like the places we grow, our childhood, all these things shape us into who we are. Would you please tell me a bit of your journey? Like, where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I'm the youngest of four children.
Yeah.
And when I was born, my dad was at that time a pastor. My mom was a nurse. They met in school and they were very much focused on God at that time. My dad's story is a bit, wild. He's one of these guys that he was in the army for a while after high school. His mother was a believer in God, but he, for a long period of his life, wasn't focused on church, so to speak. And so he went through a number of things, from, basically homelessness to drug addictions to, all types of a wild story, to the point where when he actually came back to his hometown, Muncie, where my mother was finishing her college, and she was one of like the first Black nurses to graduate from that school in Muncie, Ball State University. He started going to church, whatever. They met, and a lot of people was telling my mother, don't date this guy because he's a mess. You don't want, we don't trust this individual. But my dad, once he really committed to church and God and to Christ, he really focused and followed on that path. And so I was raised in a godly home, very godly home, and since I was born. And so he wasn't always a pastor, but over time he became a pastor, which, for any kids or children that grew up with their parents as pastors, it's you're kind of sharing your parents with the world, right? They're doing folks' weddings, they're doing folks' funerals, they're praying for folks that are in the hospital. So almost about every tragedy. You're part of some celebration. So you have your family, but you also have this big extended family. And I think one thing that taught me was kind of how to deal with people in a large way. Like it helped develop my social skills, because we're always meeting people at church. You're all different members are always coming up and either doting over you or talking to you, or they may be doing something for you. So that's one good thing out of that, is that we really learned how to deal with a variety of people. And also, like, our church is basically in the most economically depressed part of the city of Muncie, Indiana. And so we were interacting with folks who were likely on food stamps, or, some type of government assistance, or living in Section 8. So you contrast that with my mother was, what I've heard as I've gotten older, she was very big on school. So they actually enrolled me and my siblings into a private Christian school that was fundamental Baptist, and it was very expensive to go to, but we weren't rich by any means, but they were, we lived where most of the Black people lived, in across the tracks and in the more depressed. We had one of the nicer houses in the depressed part of town. But as I've grown older and understand redlining and all that stuff, we were on that side of town. But my dad would take us to school all the way to this private school on the other side of town. And it was, really a quite an experience, because what I learned as I got older, I didn't realize this at the time, but some of my friends their dad owned big construction companies, or huge land developers, or doctors, or they own the biggest insurance company in the town. And so I had this very different contrast of lifestyle. So I think that helped me a lot. And, just as I grew older, I wasn't always into school, but I have one friend in particular who was just in my wedding. And his dad was a doctor. And as we got into high school, a lot of my friends left that private school and went to the public schools. He and I almost made a sport of taking tests and doing schoolwork. And because of that, when everything starts to count, kind of that freshman year in high school,
Yeah.
I did become like an A student, but I give him a lot of credit for that because I wasn't so interested in school, but we were friends. We both played basketball, and it was, he kind of made it cool. So we would kind of see who would get done with the test faster and da 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 da. So all these things kind of shaped me. So I did end up I ended up graduating from a public school my junior year, but by the time I went to that school, I was already, had a high GPA, and so I think I had some very distinct advantages from my parents, from the environments I was exposed to, and because not only was I exposed to those good environments, but I don't have time to probably get into it, but I also was exposed to a lot of bad environments. Most of the kids that were in my neighborhood that I grew up with went to prison, and I was probably one of the only kids in that group that didn't. And so, yeah, it was quite a nurturing, but I think because I was the youngest, I got to see so much from everybody, from the bad kids, so to speak, and from the good kids, and from my older siblings to my middle sibling. And so I had quite an upbringing that I'm particularly grateful for, because I think it did set the stage for how my life has started to play out in adulthood.
Sounds like none of your parents were really like entrepreneurs. So where does this entrepreneur spirit come from?
Yeah, it's they weren't, I guess, by definition entrepreneurs, but my dad is very much a people person.
Yeah.
Like, he would deal a lot with people, and he's not only did he take over the church and cause some growth there, and also did some things with his nonprofit. He was very much involved in city, on several boards of trustees of different. So I learned a lot from him in terms of dealing with people that I think mirrors a little bit of entrepreneurship. And then also from my mom is very good as it relates to kind of smarts and book smart, and very, like, we play Scrabble for fun, and she wants to play Scrabble 30 times a day.
Wow.
And so some of these things kind of, I think, pushed the intelligence factor, to whatever degree spelling words makes you intelligent. But I think I had a good mix of like people skills and kind of learning. And other than that, just like, I think a lot of people have dreams of being an entrepreneur, or they have dreams to start stuff, but it wasn't really practical for them growing up. It was more so, get a good job. That was kind of the peak. And so I feel like, I don't know if it's just a part of something that I was gifted with, that they do tell me sometimes that I have like a knack for business. And I've failed at tons of businesses. I don't know how much we'll get into that, but I think it's just the right mixture and the right timing, and like God that has made me kind of get more into entrepreneurship, maybe at a higher level than what my parents did.
So take me back to that moment when you discovered this. I think like an event that happened in your life, and you're like, I think I like this path of entrepreneurship. Like what? Like, I don't know, like a deal or something that you did.
Okay. Well, I'd say that again, at a young age, maybe 15, 16, I started to be interested in the business of the church. How are we paying for things? What's our membership like? I started to get more concerned about the numbers. And my dad was kind of progressive as it related to church thought. And so he started preaching about grace and that God loves you and that sort of thing. And at that time, everybody around us was really focused on what you did. Are you doing the right things to make God love you, or make yourself pleasing? And so we kind of went through a little bit of a church split.
Yeah.
And I started to really look at the mechanics of the church. And that was a bit of entrepreneurship, because it's like, okay, what can we do to grow these numbers? What can we do to improve this, that, and the third? So that was happening. I'd also say at a young age, I don't know why, but I've always been interested in making money. So there's also a story about me. And my brother was just telling me this because they were here for the holidays, that my mom told him that when she'd give us money to go to McDonald's
Yeah.
to get our food, I'd always somehow come back with my money. I,
What?
I will have eaten, but I
Yeah.
would have come. So I don't know what I did, but I used to just be very interested in holding on to my dollars. So you know, that happened for me. So again, these are just small stories, but I think when you know, probably the biggest thing that happened, and this is jumping forward, was in
Yeah.
college.
Yeah.
In college, you know, me and my friends, we weren't really pleased with the party scene
Yeah.
after we got to a certain age. And one party in particular, my buddy, who's a good friend of mine now, and we do a podcast together, but he was turning 21. He was fairly popular and well known on campus. And we're trying to figure out how to celebrate it. And I talked to him and said, hey, why don't we just throw a party? And so we threw a party, you know, had DJ and all that stuff, and we made money. I think we probably made $400 or $500 at that time, and we were maybe sophomores in college or something like that. And we subsequently we started to do bigger and bigger parties while we were in school, and we, you know, do $13,000, $15,000 in a night.
Wow.
And these sort of things at a young age were like, wow, when if you solve a problem for people, they're happy to pay you for it. And so from then, I've always been interested in, you know, not being broke at all, because, you know, you go back to the McDonald's story, but also being willing to use more of my time, maybe my disposable time, to see if I can make more.
So do you think entrepreneurs are born, or they are made? Like it's a skill you can learn? And
yeah, I think my story is, you know, makes it where I have a proclivity towards entrepreneurship. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a, you know, a bit of it that's God-given.
Yeah.
But if, you know, like I said before, many of the businesses I've started have failed. And I've lost tons of money, you know, some would say wasted tons of time. So I think while you may have a tendency towards it, I think everyone has a gifting, and that's God-given. But to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to be made and remade. You have to be constantly willing to renew yourself, almost like what the Bible says, renew your mind.
Yeah.
You got to be constantly willing to, okay, how can I improve? And I think that's something that can be taught, because many people have enough skills to solve a problem, or they're gifted enough to do a thing, but gifting is not enough. You need to really understand business, and depending on what level of business you're playing at, you may need to understand it again. So I'm really big on, hey, I don't know everything, and I never know everything. And that's why it's okay to say that I'm not, never deny that God gave you maybe a knack for entrepreneurship, but never think that no one else can learn a thing, because if you don't learn more things, if you aren't made and remade, you likely won't be the best version of yourself or the best entrepreneur you can be. So I don't want to give anyone an excuse not to be an entrepreneur. But I don't want anybody to think that because they have a little bit of entrepreneurship in them, that that's enough to win, because it's not.
Yeah. So I've heard about, you know, your nature, how you grew up, and but and today we are talking you know, to people who have both jobs, but also have this nudge, and you know, like the year is coming up, and maybe someone has been thinking of starting up something, and I know you have a job, you have a full-time job, right?
Right.
And you love your job. Why not leave your job for full? first of all, tell us what is it that you do, and maybe why is it that you can't leave your job to pursue full-time entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so I have one of the most ideal working situations that exists right now. And what I do is I work for BSH Home Appliances, which is a subsidiary of Robert Bosch, which is a global company based out of Germany that they're in many different industries. You know them for their tools. They do a lot with automotive. And some people don't know they're a huge appliance brand around the globe under many different names. In the US, one of those names is Bosch Appliances. So I'm on the appliance side, and what I do actually is I'm a national account manager. So I help I'm basically like a concierge for large retail customers that need to interact with Bosch. So anything they need, I'm there to work on it with them. And so I'm actually based in North Carolina, close to one of those large retail customers, because it's necessary to be close to them, be on their same time zone, so I can respond to their needs very quickly. Well, our region, North America, which is what I work for, home office is in Irvine, California. So I'm not actually in the home office. So that's a benefit. Before the pandemic, I had flexibility with my schedule. I have a small office here that I work out of for Bosch. But again, I have flexibility because, after 5, sometimes I'm working till 7 or 8 because I've got people on the West Coast that might need, to work with me. And so the reason I like my job is, one, I'm paid very well for my job, so that helps.
If you don't mind, would you tell us, okay, at least an average, like, let's say,
So what I make per year, so this year I made, gosh, I don't want to give the exact number just in case any of my colleagues are watching, and you never want to, cause issues, but I definitely make over 6 figures. And this particular year, I was just looking at it actually, because I think we got our last paycheck last week for the year. But I'm getting closer to the let's say, and if you look at some of my other podcasts, so this year it's going to be over 160,000. It's over that. So I was actually pleased with that this year. I was like, didn't feel like it was over, but it was over that this year.
That's a good story.
Yeah. So, I guess it doesn't matter if someone gets upset about that, but so it's for me, that's not a lot of money to some people, but for me, that's pretty good.
So that's and that's why I was asking, like, you why not? So now you have a good job, but you also have, as we'll get into it, you have like businesses that pay you also quite a good amount of money. So why not leave the job and focus on the entrepreneurial side?
Well, one reason in particular is one, because I still learn stuff on my job. So my job is like, my particular side of the business will do what is that, 9 figures? 7 is 1. My particular side of business will do sizable 9 figures this year. So I'm managing millions and millions of dollars. It's a different type of, you learn different things when you're managing at that level. So that's one. What I'm learning is important. So it's not wasted time for me to be doing work for someone else, because I'm still learning things from them. 2 is because most people that are entrepreneurs, they really only do one thing, meaning when they leave their jobs, they just trade in that job for another job. Right. So, okay, I'm going to stop working for my main job and I'm going to go be a full-time entrepreneur. Well, basically means you've created yourself a job.
Yeah.
Which for me is not my goal.
Uh,
You still have to work as an entrepreneur. And so I get that. But my real goal is to be an owner, not just a worker in my business. So ownership is a different level, right? Ownership means you guys give me the reports of what the work is doing. I'll review it, provide any feedback and input I can, but you're the one executing the work. And so I think it requires a different skill to be an owner.
yeah.
And me having a job forces me to have other people working for me much quicker than, and it forces me to partner more than it would if I was doing it all myself. And why am I willing to do that? Why am I willing to not take all the money for myself? Why am I willing to, for instance, with Turo, I'm willing to pay somebody,
Yeah.
whether we're making money or not, to run my Turo business, because I'd rather be an owner than to be a worker of Turo. And I want to understand, like, when the person that helps me is not executing the way I want them to, it's easier for me to say, okay, you're fired. I'm just going to do it myself.
Yeah.
But I actually, while I gain more in the short term, in the long term, I lose more, because now I got to find a new person, and what's happening with them where their work is changing, or where they're not producing what they need to be. So you learn, when you force yourself to not quit your job and to still be an entrepreneur, you actually force yourself to solve problems in different ways, get help from others. And I think it forces you to actually, and accelerates you to, when you do get rid of a job, you already step into more of an ownership position rather than just stepping into another job. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. I hear you say it's it's more like they are transferable skills. You're getting something from your job, and like skills from your job that you're applying in your business. And so it's a both and,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I encourage anyone, if your job gives you, and look, sometimes my job is inflexible and I have to be there and I have to be there and I've got to be this. And so it's not perfect. It creates headaches. It's stressful. It puts pressure on my family, my wife and my kids.
That's actually that's actually my next question. Like, balance. Let's talk about balance. How do you balance? You have a wife, you have kids, you have a business to run, you have a job to run. We are all given 24 hours in a day. Like, how do you give 100%? Is it even such a thing, like giving 100% to the job, to your family, to your kids, and all these things, your businesses? How do you balance all this?
It's it's really not a balance, right? Because a balance would be more like, right, I think balance means it's even on both sides.
Yeah.
Like it's always even, and it's not always even.
Yeah.
Probably we're working on a really big project right now. So probably for the past, I don't know, since the wedding. The wedding was end of October. And even a little bit before then, I've been working like crazy. I've been coming home late, maybe, leaving the house at 8 in the morning, probably not coming back until 8:30, which at that time, sometimes I'm not seeing the girls at all for a day.
Yeah.
And so it gets very imbalanced. But what I do is, we just experienced some holidays. I've got some days off from my main job. So on those days, I'm not opening my computer at all.
Yeah.
So then I balance it the other way, where I'm very focused on the family and I'm trying to give them 100% of me. And let's make some memories. Let's make some time. So it's very much a seesaw. Sometimes my family gets a lot of me. Sometimes they don't get a lot of me. Sometimes my job gets a lot of me. Sometimes it doesn't get a lot of me.
Yeah.
And sometimes my businesses get a lot of me. Sometimes they don't. And it's like,
and your business is aware. I mean, your job is aware that you have a business on the side, right?
correct.
Okay.
Yep. So that was a unique situation as well, where when I actually got recruited to come over to this opportunity, and that's a whole nother thing, but they did recruit me. I said, look, I'm not going to leave a job that was good at that time and come to another job and not have the flexibility. So I negotiated it into the flexibility. And I was surprised, honestly, that they were like, yeah, that won't be a problem, because they wanted my skill set. They wanted what I had to offer, but I was just upfront with them. I was in no rush to leave. I had a very good job before I got to this good job. Right. And I think people they don't give themselves enough credit. Like if someone really wants to recruit you, let them know what you need. Let them know what you need to make. Let them know that you have other businesses. And the main thing was that as long as those businesses don't compete with, one, my job, getting my job done, and then two, aren't in the same industry as my main job, it's no problem. And I imagine a lot of people have not asked for that, and they could. And I don't think everyone needs to, but I certainly needed to, because just as the way my life is set up, I didn't want to be trying to duck and hide and, figure out how I could do both. I wanted to, look, I need to do both. Is that okay? And then fully accept it. So yeah, but yeah, it's not completely balanced all the time, but it is a matter of, it's almost a negotiation. It's a give and take, especially with my wife. It's like, hey, babe, this is temporary. But I need to do XYZ. When I first started Turo, there was 6 months where I was on work calls. And I'm driving to deliver a car. And then I'm getting on another work call and I'm in an Uber driving to trying to head back home to get back to the office. Hey, can I send you, when do you need that? And it's a lot about understanding expectations too. People get a little bit worked up, but when a boss or a manager asks you for something, you got to ask them, okay, when do you need it? Do you need it right this minute? Do I need to stop everything? And many times people don't. They just want to get it on your radar, and, and then they want to see if you'll prioritize it. So I think there's a lot there in terms of the balance question. And it is, the main reason I would likely leave a true 9 to 5 when I feel like it's the right time is to give my family more time, but it won't be to go and work another job and give my family even less time of me. Right. So I think now is the tough time. I've got to learn how to do both. My job helps me handle my basic bills, make sure stuff is paid for, etc. This extra stuff is supposed to help us retire early and be able to pay for kids' colleges and do extra things that we might want to do. And so my family understands. My girls are little now, so I get a little more grace with them, but I'm hurrying to try to get the infrastructure set up where I'm able to leave an actual job and not just replace it with, I was working 9 to 5. Now I'm working 9 to 9 every day because I have no understanding of how to hire people, how to lead a team, how to get work done through others. So I don't think people understand it fully, but it's like, it's perfect to have a job and become an entrepreneur, because you're going to accelerate your ability to get work done through others. And it's hard. I've been learning I've been an entrepreneur for a while now, and I'm just getting to the point where I've got a consistent team. I've had people around me before, but they've kind of come and gone. And I'm just getting to a point where I can actually consistently pay people. And it's hard, and it's a sacrifice to do that. And I'm glad. I want to learn what that's like now. So so it can get legs and it can build up. And when I actually leave a job, I can have something sustainable to go to that's not going to put me right back in the same position that I was in.
So what would you say is the hardest part of balancing that, being an employer at the same time an employee, having a job? And
the job is probably the hardest part, because the job demands a lot at certain times. And so being an employee is difficult. An employer is difficult, but it moves, the thing that bothers, I think that will bother people that are doing it the way I'm doing it, is that you're spending money on people. And if you got to go do something else for your job, you may not be getting the results you want.
Yeah.
But you can't stop investing in your administrative assistant or your person that's running your car business. You can't stop investing in that. So for some people, it may feel like, man, you wasted all that money. What did they even do for you this week? You just paid out $200, $300, $500 on somebody and they didn't give you the right result. And for me, it's like, okay, it's not their fault. I have to figure out how to be even more scheduled, even more structured, to where they can know what to do without me. And so I'm currently in the process of doing that. I'm using, we were, the thing when we were in DC together, and they were talking about Asana and how to project manage things.
Yeah.
And to be, I know I was kind of inspirational there, but to be more practical, like me and my family use a calendar. Me and my wife, it's like, if we want a date or do something, we've got to put it on a calendar. Yeah. And at first she hated that. But now she understands, especially with kids, that that's just a practical thing we have to do in order to balance the lifestyle, or, seesaw the lifestyle we have and get some time for ourselves and others.
Yeah. So now I want us to talk about your businesses, would you please help my viewers, audience, to know what kind of businesses you're involved in, and yeah, I know one, and which one is like the one that brings in the most?
Yeah, so my businesses, so one, Stephen Anthony Consulting Inc. is my main business.
Yes.
And that I've had since 2017. Started basically consulting with people, assisting with their business plans, giving them advice on the retail space, which is the space I'm in, helping them, with a variety of things, grant writing, other things that I have experience in that I've done. The other thing is my SACG, which is really just a component of Stephen Anthony Consulting Group. It's just another almost like shelf company that I have, that when I grow big enough, I will put activities under that. My biggest business is Diamond Shine Cleaner. It's basically paying for everything. That is a cleaning brand that we've started. You can visit us online, diamondshinecleaner.com. I have a partner in that that's really helped us grow. We started selling very small on Facebook, on eBay now, and then we went to Amazon, started selling on Amazon. Then we went to Lowe's.com, Walmart.com, and now we've been blessed enough to get some opportunities to do some things in store, which we're praying will continue. But that's our biggest business, is actually selling products direct to customers and partnering with and wholesaling them to big retail companies as well. We've got the Turo business that falls under Stephen Anthony Consulting, where we have 17 cars. At one point we had 23, 24 cars, but we've got now 17 cars. We have one in Indiana, 2 in Ohio, and I think the rest are down here, 14 or so down here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And, that's a business that has been generated, over 6 figures for us. And it allows us to have depreciable assets, equipment that works for us. So we're really happy with that business. And then I'd say the other major thing is the Stephen Motivate brand, which is what I'm really focused on now. And that's the brand that's going to help me share the knowledge, share some of the information that we have. There's other things I'm interested in. I've bought some real estate. I've got friends that are doing real estate really big, but I haven't really gotten into it. Again, I kind of got burnt early on and lost a lot of money, so I was gun shy. But now that's on my radar, but it's not something that's producing income for me. And there are other things on my radar, but my main focus is really building this personal brand, Stephen Motivate, and helping people. because helping people, I believe, is really the thing that's going to be fulfilling. And the last thing I'll say is I am involved with my father, who had passed away last year, his nonprofit. And so my brother, one of my brothers, I have two brothers. One of them is the head of that. They're running that. But I worked in that nonprofit for an extended period of time. So I'm also involved in that. What's another business? My other business that I have is bracewoodcapital.com. I want to shout them out because that's a group of us. That's really me and several of my friends. And what we look for with that business is acquisitions, or really it's our a pseudo way for us to play in the private equity space. So we do some funding for people, do some short-term loans, and we constantly look for other businesses that are already set up to acquire. That has been more daunting than we first imagined, but we're always looking at a business, evaluating it, and seeing if they don't have someone to pass it down to in their family, if they don't have a good strategy otherwise, hey, you might want to work with us and we can help you either sell it to someone else, or we can work with different financing mechanisms to buy your business from you and continue it on.
And I'm sure you have like a small course that you offer for if someone wants to get into the Turo business.
Absolutely. So the academy.stephenmotivate.com is my course showing people how they can generate 6 figures in 6 months or less without quitting their day job using Turo via the car sharing. And there's other ways, private rentals. There's other plays with having vehicles that people potentially want to use. But yeah, that is the course. And then, my tag at Stephen Motivate, just like we're doing now, we want to just give people as much value and information as possible, have them follow me, connect with me. I'm really going to be working to build more community and just sharing as much knowledge as possible. Folks want the laid out every single detail. They can do that through the course, but if they're not ready for that, they can tap in with me personally. And another thing I didn't mention about the job thing, one reason I keep a job is so I can utilize something that I think is important, which is I have these basic principles, I think, on how to get rich slow. And I think that you need a job. When you do that, you can really max out your 401k and some retirement stuff and not really feel it, especially if you start making a higher and higher amount of a wage. So that's really important to me as well. But I'm also going to be putting some basic courses together to help people just learn the basics of what they should do with their money, regardless of if they want to be a serial entrepreneur or not.
So, I mean, you've just talked about all these many businesses going on, and someone would say, and I've had this, people say, oh, you need to focus on one thing. If you want to be an expert in that thing, you need to focus. And I'm sorry to maybe to use this word, but maybe to say, I don't want to use that word. It's like jack of all trades, because I'm also kind of like that. Like doing one thing is, I get bored once I've said something and it's like 3 years and it's running itself. I get bored. But some people say you need to do this thing for 15 years and all this, for you to be like an expert. What do you have to say about that statement?
Yeah, so I think I believed in the statement that Stephen Covey would make, where he'd say that he's a writer that's deceased, but he would say that you need to read 15 books on the subject to get close to expertise in the area, to figure out what folks are talking about, and really figure out an industry, an area, a topic, etc. So I do believe you should read 15 books on a subject to gain some expertise in that area. The Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours rule sort of thing, I think that's great, but I think you have to, one of my mentors, Dr. Darius Daniels, a pastor, says that you need to learn how to hack yourself. So I've tried, like you, to stop thinking about other stuff, and I'm just going to have blinders on and focus on one thing. What I found is that, like you said, I get bored. I literally, like, distractions are my thing. Like, I want to go do something else. It does bore me. So having a myriad of activities is something that is, I think, germane or native to me specifically. And I think it's native to other people. And so how do you hack yourself? How do you make sure that your tendency doesn't limit you, but propels you? And so what I say is that you got to figure out what you're good at. I know I'm good at starting stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not as good at finishing things or doing the mundane everyday stuff. So again, why do and I can do it for somebody else. I do it for my job. There's certain things I do every week or every day for my job that I have to do. But when I'm building my own business, I think the hack for me is to partner with other people.
Yeah.
And so I very rarely get too concerned about, I got to keep all the money for myself, or I gotta, I don't want to, you have to kind of speed up trust with people, and you have to try to figure out who you can rock with, so to speak, so you can do multiple things and figure out who's good at what and partner with them. I think you can be successful by focusing solely on one thing. I think some people can do that, and I think it's good advice for some people, but you have to know yourself, and it might take longer. I've been at entrepreneurship since my early 20s, and I'm in my mid 30s now. And I've failed many times, but for me, I'm okay with that because I see those all as lessons. So if you can't be patient enough with yourself, then maybe you need to just focus on one thing.
Yeah.
But I can be patient enough with myself to learn those lessons. And then again, hacking myself, the biggest hack for me is, who can I partner with? I'm never afraid to partner with somebody to try to get what Andy Stanley calls further faster.
Yeah. Awesome. You just talked about failures. Let's talk about that. In entrepreneurship, I know it's not all rosy like how people think. You get in, and then you the first week you make your $100,000 or whatever, and you try to allude to the fact that you've lost money. You've done a ton of things and you've lost money. How do you deal with loss?
My tolerance for loss has become very high because I've dealt with it so often. So I've, like, going back to the parties, I didn't like losing money, but I would take money that I'd earned from jobs or different resources or people giving me money for Christmas or whatever. My first instinct is not to just go spend it all. My first instinct is to, let's make an investment and grow it. And in that pursuit, I've lost it. And so because I've lost it and my life has continued, the world didn't blow up.
Yeah.
I was able to wake up the next day. You start to realize that, oh, losing is not the end of the world. You can keep going if you choose to. If you continue to focus on what's next and not focus on so much of the loss, you can continue to make moves. And so I deal with loss that way. I'm always willing to put out what I'm willing to lose. So if I've got to invest 20,000, I know right then, all right, I might lose that.
Yeah.
I might not get exactly what I want or what I think I'm going to get when it's being sold to me or when the idea is in my head. But I'm always going to get something, whether it's the loss or the lesson. I'm always going to get something. And then you have to do those other basics with your money, so you're not risking everything, right? You've got to be saving and what I call paying yourself consistently. You've got to be doing that, because now what I'm losing is truly disposable. My bills are already paid. I'm already saving weekly money that comes in. So I never even, people say with their check, especially, and I go back to the 401k thing, people say, oh, I can't max out my 401k because it's just too much out of my paycheck. But in reality, and I had a millionaire tell me this, you are wasting that money typically anyway.
Yeah.
You're wasting an extra $100, $200, $300 out of your check, whether it's on fast food or this or that or the third. And so if you just say, hey, job, put that in a retirement account when I get older and I'm not able to work like I want to, put that over there. Hey, I've set my bills up and you know, I make a higher income than most, so I set my bills up on automatic pay. So I know my bills are paid. So when I go and risk money and take a big loss, I know I know I'm not going to get kicked out of my house.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing other basic things with my money. And that's another reason I like the ability to leverage my job or what, use my job to its maximum advantage, because that job can make sure my wife is not, okay, this dude's being entrepreneurial, but we might lose the house tomorrow. I don't want her under that stress.
Yeah.
I really just don't. So I'd rather, make sure she knows she's comfortable. Now, this other money, I might reinvest it, and we might lose it. But my tolerance for that becomes high, partly because a lot of the foundational things are already taken care of. And it allows me to take more risk. And so, because, I think the more risks you take, and when they're calculated and right, you will eventually, I mean, I'm a testimony that you will eventually hit on one of the things. And so all that hesitancy to invest and, oh, do you really want to pay another employee? Yes, because I want to build this infrastructure.
Yeah.
Why would I not? I'm trying to go so yeah, I'm going to pay somebody. Well, they're not really doing anything. Well, I know they're not going to be able to do anything for a few months. I've got to teach them. I've got to give them more vision. I've got to put more structure around them. So it's okay. People feel like you're losing money by having a virtual assistant. No, it's making you be a better person, because now you have to figure out, how do I give this person my vision of what I need them to help me with?
Yeah.
So I have a high tolerance for loss. And that's how I deal with it.
And how do you stay grounded?
I've made a little bit of money doing this, being an entrepreneur, working. And what I found, like I was saying earlier, is making money is really not the most important thing.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to make a ton of it and I want to do big things with it. But when you have losses and big losses, and when people steal your car, or when you don't get a contract you were expecting, you realize like that, a lot of this stuff is in God's hands. You have to do your best, but God has to do the rest.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, I've become a lot less anxious about certain things. And really the Turo business has really helped with this, because the Turo business, it's not rosy, especially when you have 17 cars.
Yeah.
And like I said, we used to have 24. So we've been through at least 3 or 4 or 5 accidents, or people stealing it, or stresses. And so that became so wild. Like, okay, I wake up one day and a car is stolen, and you have to learn how to be like, this, you almost have to laugh at it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, this is a part of this journey that you're going on. But at the end of the day, if I sell all these cars, if I stop being an entrepreneur tomorrow, there is a level of you that's going to be okay.
Yeah.
You're really going to feel, all you really need is shelter and some food and your family. If you've got those things, you really have a rich, very rich life. And yeah, I want to do these experiences and make more money, but I stay grounded by knowing that, I don't know if this sounds, almost like contradictory, but it almost doesn't matter. Like making all this money and being all successful, there's a level of it that doesn't matter. The only thing, and I tell my wife this, the only thing that makes it matter.
Can I, just so that's a good point that I want you to tag into this. You make quite, like, I don't know, you said and your job will pay like over 160, and your businesses, what would you say, like over 150, 160 still, something like that? Let's say,
my businesses are actually doing very well. I don't want to give the big number, but I'm able to at least take home an additional 150, 160, what have you.
So that's like, that's over 300,000, and that's like, you're already in the 1%, not 1%, but at least the small percentage of Americans here. So and you're saying it doesn't really matter. Yes, you want to make a ton of it, but it doesn't really matter. So what would you define as success to you?
Perfect question. It's impact. Because so the only reason I'm doing all of this, like what motivates me, if it doesn't matter, of course you get nice things and all that's fun and having money, there's an element of it, it's fun, but there's another element that it's a huge responsibility. And so why would you even do this? Well, again, I think it's a God thing, it's a purpose thing, even if you don't believe in God. If you start to tap into what is my purpose?
Yeah.
What am I really here to do? Who do I really want to impact? Excuse me. And my father taught me this, that everyone has value. Like the drunk person on the side of the street, or the guy hustling, trying to get, $2 from you on the corner that probably has a Mercedes parked around the corner and he's probably hustling. Everyone has value. And it's the strangest thing. So it's like if everyone has value, then there's a certain level of love and respect I need to have for humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And if humanity starts to miss out on, if they start to devalue themselves or start to see themselves as less than, or because of their situation or because of a certain action or something that has happened, then because I have this knowledge or this revelation of what God is and what they are and the value they have, I have almost a duty to impact them.
Mm.
And I've seen, my father didn't die with a lot of money, but his funeral was packed. And I was like, and I said this at his funeral, I was like, I always thought that my father didn't understand protocol and order and like how things should be in the business of things. But what I've now know is that it's not that he didn't understand it. It was just that he was never willing to put protocol over people. He was always willing to put people over any sort of protocol. And so he was always willing, if it meant, emptying the bank account, I'm going to impact this person because they have value. I'm going to impact this prostitute. I'm going to take them to lunch because they have value. And that's probably something they don't get to experience. So, and I thought, I'm like, man, this is boom. So that's it. But that did put a lot of pressure on us as his family, not always understanding that. So one of my purposes and goals in life is to be able to have that type of impact with that type of level of thinking, with that grounded level of thinking that I'm no better than you, Marvin, and you're no better than me. We have equal footing. We're both created by God. We have talents and gifts that God has given that they can't be taken away from us. And when I see you, Marvin, if there's a way I can impact you or connect with you, then I have a duty to try to do that. And so the one reason I'm trying to make money is because of the way my dad lived, and it did put pressure on finances and all those things that I thought mattered. I'm just trying to do this both, but I realize if I never get the money, that the people are still the priority. If all this falls apart, and the 300,000 plus that I've made this year, this is the first year I've made that. I'm not making like 300,000 every year. Like this is the first year of my several businesses that one of them actually hit a level where I could take home that much additional income. And so I'm still new to this, but now I see that there may be the capability to do both. There may be the capability to get enough money, set up enough infrastructure where I can have enough revenue flowing through, where I can still take that revenue and now impact people in a way where they start to realize, man, I do have value. Man, because there are people, like you said, that aren't grounded, that do go through a loss or lose a job, and they're like, I'm worthless. I've got to check out. And the organizations, the nonprofits, the way we want to impact the world, we want to try to be a defense system against that. So that's what inspires me to keep doing it, even though in the big scheme of things, if I never do it, if after this, everything that I told you about, if all those businesses go insolvent and don't work, I know that I still have value, and I know I still need to make it my point to remind people that they have value too.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. So I know we our time is almost fast spent, but I just maybe have one or two questions to ask. And I know one of them is, we are in one mentorship group, but also I think you're doing and you are in another mentorship group, and these are really expensive mentorship groups, and you know you've spent over, I don't know, 30,000, whatever amount it is on just mentorship and masterminds and all that. Why?
Yeah, I have, and it is expensive. And you do almost feel like, am I being taken here? Am I getting taken advantage of?
I know.
Like, am I the idiot that's gonna say, yeah, take my money and teach me something? But why? The number one reason is because I'm meeting people like you. I'm meeting like-minded people. So if I don't get anything, and I am getting something from these mentors and people, these masterminds and people I'm connected to and we're connected to. But if I'm learning now that I've been in them, if I don't get anything from them, I'm getting something from connecting with like-minded people. Like, we're connecting now, and who knows how many people will see this or who will be impacted by it. But because of what I just said and because of what I believe deeply, even if it's just one person that sees it, we could really help them. Like, we could really impact their life or their life. And that is enough. Like, that pays for it. And so that's why. And I love what Dr. Darius says. He's like, there's no greater investment you can make than the investment you make in yourself. And wow, like I said, on one end, it's like, man, that's a great line. But on the other end, it's like, it's really true. It's really true that I'm making an investment in myself, either by meeting new people like you, getting new information, or just getting exposure to other folks that I may not be able to, call up on the phone like I can call you, but I'm just getting in the room with them just for a few minutes to see how they think, how they act, how they move. How are the people who are winning? How are the greats conducting themselves? What are their attitudes like? How do they sell themselves? How do they introduce themselves? And so all of that matters, right? And I don't think the money is the thing, even though it seems like a high price tag. If you think about it, how, at least for me, how I've advanced in life, at some point, my parents put me in preschool. I met people there, helped me advance. High school, did the same. College, met. And so when we get to adulthood, it's almost like it's only our job and our family, and that's kind of all we know. And it's a little harder to make those connections. So I think the networking with the masterminds is the biggest thing, because who knows what God has in store for Marvin, right? And the hands you'll shake, the people you'll touch. And so, but when you get older, it's harder to network with people. It's harder to meet people. I haven't nearly met as many people as I met in my early 20s in college or in my teens. I haven't met as many people. And yeah, I met people on the job and that sort of thing. But still, it's not to the level and the connection that you have with people when it's not just a work setting. So for me, that's the why. And I encourage everybody to, if you're thinking about a mastermind, pray about it. I mean, don't be, flippant with it. And you got to kind of check your emotions and make sure you're not just buying something emotionally. But I encourage people to invest in themselves via getting in the room with other like-minded people. And I think that even though it's expensive, that to me makes it worth it.
Perfect. So I want you to help me encourage someone or talk to someone who, and this is like maybe our last question. Help me talk to someone who wants to start out, but they're still maybe held by fear or doubt or imposter syndrome, all these things that are going on in their head, and they want everything to be perfect. Would you please help me talk to someone, and then maybe finally you can let my audience know how they can connect with you.
So the imposter syndrome, the limiting beliefs, we all have them. We all have to fight against them. And I love what, Marvin, you're doing in the House of Entrepreneurs brand in general, because you, the person listening, and I, the one speaking now, we both need encouragement. We both need to be in rooms with people who are starting, in rooms with people who are taking losses, in rooms with people who are having wins. What you think is possible for you, your inability to start, your inability to finish or to partner with the right person is very much connected to who you're around and the circle you're around. If you're not listening to the House of Entrepreneurs, if you're not subscribed to that, you're likely not getting enough of what you need to move forward, because there's everything around us. Like, gosh, when I walk out of this room right now, there's going to be a traffic situation where someone's going to slam on the brakes. There's so many things that happen that try to frustrate us and like just tear us down and make us think that, oh man, I can't do it, or I shouldn't do it, or I don't have the capability. Everything, almost everything, entertainment, news, tragedy, almost tries to reinforce the idea that it's not possible. And so you have to be very, very intentional about getting in the rooms with people who believe, who know, who are telling you, who are vocalizing, who are repetitiously saying it is possible. You can do it. You can be an entrepreneur. You can start. And I'll tell you, I love starting stuff. And so if you get around me, I'm going to help you start. I'm going to show you, hey, there's a joy in starting. There's an excitement in starting. And there are things you're missing out on just because you're not around the right people long enough to get inspired enough to know that it's also possible for you. And so that's my encouragement to you guys out there. And Marvin, thanks again for having me on. I think this is great. House of Entrepreneurs, man. We're going to, like, the videos you're going to be putting out there, the content, the people you're going to be connecting us with, the information you're going to be giving us is needed. And it's never too much, because it'd be like looking on Netflix and saying there's too many movies. No, because people like movies, right? And thousands of movies. So we, as entrepreneurs, we need several. The Bible says there is safety in the multitude of counsel. And so we need safety. What keeps us safe in our entrepreneurial journey, where we don't allow that imposter syndrome and limiting beliefs take over, is us being around more like-minded people. And so I encourage you, connect with House of Entrepreneurs, subscribe. I'm subscribed. And if you want to connect with me, Stephen Motivate, find me also on YouTube. I'm in very similar ways trying to do similar things, encourage people to start, to keep going, to keep moving, and know that it's possible for you. You can find me at Stephen Motivate. That's STEPHENMOTIVATE, Stephen Motivate, on all social media platforms. You can find me on YouTube as well. But man, I'm just, this energized me. I'm like ready to go start another business.
Yeah,
So thanks again, man.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate, you coming on and, sharing words of wisdom. And, I hope to, catch up with you soon. Thank you so much.